My name is Dr. Shobboshachi Sen. I am the Dean Research and Development of JIS College of Engineering. But herein I am here to talk about my physics courses. Okay, I am basically a physics teacher. I do take physics in the classes in the BTech courses, so first and second year. So now here I am talking about my second year courses, which is called Physics 2 courses. Now, second year course in Physics 2 is separate for separate branches. For computer science and IT, bokeh is something. For mechanical, civil, it is different. For electrical, electronics, all are different. Obviously, they are learning in a different semester. Now, it is stream specific. It is as per the requirement of your own subject. Okay. Say in the computer science and IT syllabus, we have added the latest computation like quantum computation. Like the applications of latest materials called nanomaterials, how the storage and display devices works. These things are not so much connected with the mechanical and civil engineering, who are also learning physics 2 in this course. So we have kept courses like the ultrasonics, okay, which is applied in mechanical and civil. The concept of building acoustics for civil, which is not needed for you. So basically, we have made it stream specific. We made a thorough analysis of the requirement of your course from your department, from your alumni, from the existing student. We made a survey. Based on that, course objective and outcome was framed, and let me present the same now. Now the course objective of this Physics 2 course for CSE and IT student is to introduce topics, okay, is to apply quantum mechanics for learning the latest of computation called quantum computation, learn quantum logic gates. Is to, as a student, you get comprehend about the hardware sectors of your devices, okay, the storage, display part, and also the latest storage devices. The entire electronics is moving very fast, and that is because of the revolution in semiconductors and now the nano devices. Okay, so an introduction to that. So that will be another objective of this course. And also this entire communication system, okay, it's based on the electromagnetic theory. Okay, so we'll also provide you some glimpses of electromagnetic theory, because later on you have got courses on the analog communication and digital communication. Okay. Now the major course outcome of this Physics 2 course for CSE or IT student is that after undergoing this course, you will be able to explain the electromagnetic theory with your basic knowledge of electrostatics, magnetostatics and electromagnetic theory. You will be able to explain the most modern computing devices using the latest idea of quantum mechanics and quantum mechanics principle. You will be able to explain the operation of the most modern storage devices, how it evolved from the magnetic storage to semiconductor devices. You will be able to judge the requirement of the latest material for the purpose of computing, for the circuit design, and for the storage material, that is the ideas of nanomaterials. Okay, so let us, and this is closely connected with your own program, so you can get that in the course outcome, program outcome mapping also. On the screen you can see the various modules that are present in this course, and you can also see the module that you will be starting with. We'll start with one of the promising modules of the course, as well as you can also see the topic that we will begin with. And in this particular class, whatever we will be focusing on, the related prerequisite, what is the objective of the class, and if at the end of the class you're supposed to get something from me, that is the outcome of the session. So that session outcome also you can see on the screen. Okay, so far we have been talking mainly about how to solve Schrodinger equation, the role of the potential energy function in the expression of the Schrodinger equation, and how it influences the problem from problem to problem, how as the V varies, how the nature of the solution of the Schrodinger equation changes. We'll be solving few problems very soon. We'll be solving actually 3 problems according to your syllabus. Apart from that, you have got Kronig-Penney model in the course of band theory courses. So that will be another application of Schrodinger equation. We'll do that, but let us ask Mr. Schrodinger to take a bit of rest. Okay, because simply speaking, suppose you are solving Schrodinger equation and you have got a function psi, and I have been telling you every day psi is just a mathematical function. Okay. Now suppose you get the function, and suppose it is sine function, cos function. To you, if you use the mathematical brain, it is just a function, mathematical function. Obviously, there are some constraints also. We will discuss. Not any arbitrary solution of Schrodinger equation is not going to represent the matter. There will be some condition. We will discuss that separately. But suppose you have solved the Schrodinger equation, you have got the wave function. Now the question is that what you do with the wave function? So for that purpose, what you do, you need some more information, some more knowledge. Okay, how to deal with the wave function psi. So to do that, I give some examples to you understand. Again, classical example. I cannot give you a quantum example in a normal daily life problem. Again, you see, I've got a ball in my hand. Okay. Now I've got a very simple question. Is that suppose I throw the question is that what do you mean by the mechanics of the ball? Or suppose I throw the ball like this. Question is that what do you understand by the mechanics of the ball? Or suppose I throw the ball like this. What do you mean by the mechanics of the ball? Okay. The question is the first time when I was throwing the ball up. Okay, when I was throwing the ball up, it was moving in a straight line path. When I was throwing like this way, it was moving you may say it is moving in a projectile path. And when I was moving like this, you may be telling that I am giving a small rotation to the journey of the ball. So now you may say this is projectile motion, this will be linear motion, this will be a rotational motion, like that. But common sense is that who told you that it is the basic concept of a linear motion, projectile motion, the word linear, the word projectile, word rotation, more are geometric concept. What you have been doing yourself so far to describe the motion? You see, to know whether it is moving in straight line or not, you have been doing this much. First you see the ball here, next you see the ball here, next you see the ball here. So what is your job? Your role is an observer. And what you have been doing with time, you are noting how its position is changing. Initially the position was here. So you note your time with the clock and the length of height from the floor, maybe the y1. Now it comes to y2, it comes to y3, like that much. So your job was the role of an observer. You are observing the positions of the chalk of this ball at various time. Okay, and that is the basics of mechanics. We describe the two questions, WH questions. That is where the object is at a given time. Now at the time maybe t1 it is at y1, at t2 it is at y2, at t3 it is at y3. And we conclude as with time the positions are changing, so it's a dynamics problem of motion. But question that is only position knowing is sufficient to describe the motion. Suppose I throw the ball again and I apply a force. Suppose the mass of the ball may be say 20 gram. So mass I am providing you, and I am applying a force maybe 500 dyne on the ball, and I wish to know where the ball will go after 2 seconds, or say maybe 5 seconds. So I am throwing the ball and asking you again where the ball will go after some time. Okay. Now you see, to answer this question, only position data is not going to help you. They can throughout you may say I will look at the ball for 5 seconds. That is good for 5 seconds. Suppose a train is leaving Kollani station now. Okay, and I wish to know where the train will be after half an hour. Now, is it possible for you to run with the train for half an hour and keep on determining its position? Okay, it's not practical. So, which is more practical? Mr. Newton is there to help you. We use the Newtonian law, the amount of. I have given you some hints also. The mass of the ball, the force I am applying on the ball. So you have got Newton to help you. Force equal to mass into acceleration. Or if it is you may say for 1D problem, you may simply write down F is equal to m d2 x dt2. Integrate it twice, you get the position at a given time. So life is easy the moment you take the help of Newtonian idea. Okay, but what I am trying to emphasize, Newton's law everybody knows at your age. What I am trying to emphasize is that to describe the motion of the ball, you need some more data, because you have to be predictive. You have to go for prediction where it would go after some time. You need more data apart from position and time. What is the force applied? What is the velocity? What is the momentum? All these data you need to know. So if you know all of them, you can successfully describe the motion of the object. Okay, now another option can take place. So only position and at a given time will tell you whether it is moving or not. But to do prediction where it will go after some time or so, you need more data. Like, okay, so position and time are primary information. You need some secondary data like force, velocity, acceleration, momentum, etc. Now another thing that can happen, you see what this ball can do. You see, I am throwing the ball. You see what the ball is doing. Now the ball is actually colliding with the wall. Okay, it is colliding with the wall. Not for collision, it may be elastic or it may be inelastic. So when you see the single ball can move in a straight line path, in a projectile path, in a rotational path. Now to know the motion only, position and time are good enough. But to know where it would go after some time, that means you have to make some prediction. You need more data like velocity, acceleration, momentum. And it means the same ball can collide also. To describe collision, in more data like kinetic energy, like potential energy, because for elastic collisions the kinetic energy and potential energy, the total energy is conserved, and for every collision momentum is conserved. So therefore the single ball to describe, you need so many data. Okay, only position and time will tell you whether it is a problem of motion or not. But to get it done completely, it's how it is moving, where it will reach, whether it is colliding or not. So you need lot of data. Now all of them, what they are doing, their single job is to describe the motion of an object, that is called a ball. Now all these variables are describing the dynamics of a ball, so that's why these are called dynamical variables. Now the point is that for a ball, it's a big object, you can measure it easily. Okay, because you can see the ball, so what its separation from the floor, you can measure it. Okay, where it is going after some, you can measure it because you can see the ball, it's a big object. Problem is that in my class I do not discuss about balls, I talk about electrons, my tiny microscopic object. And to us, electron is manifested by a function psi. So again you have to rely on our mathematics approach. How from psi you can get this information. Okay, so let us get it in the mathematical way.
Hello students, very good morning to all of you. Welcome to class 5 of my series of lectures on quantum mechanics 2, and as I everyday remind you, it is a part of your physics course, physics 2 course, and this course has been indigenously made for you the students of computer science and IT second year. We have kept topics which are aligned in your course requirement. We have kept topics like most modern computation called quantum computation. We have kept topics like the semiconductor physics of semiconductor devices, the storage material, the display devices, and the latest of electronic devices called nanoelectronic material or nanomaterials in general. So we have tried to make your things in unison with the requirement of a computer science and IT professional. And apart from that, in order to, there are topics like electromagnetic theory also, which is connected with the communication theory, which is also going to be a paper for you in the future semester. As majority of the course is deals with most modern concepts of physics and electronics, and everywhere we use quantum mechanics, so we begin our journey with the quantum mechanics courses. So far I have taken few classes. In those classes I illustrated how to I illustrated basically the essentially the physics of the basics of the quantum mechanics quantum mechanics 1. I made a thorough recapitulation of that, and some of the major concepts we developed. Then this is myself, okay, you can understand. Now I reminded you that there are 4 situations that can happen in nature. Obviously the situation 1 is matter showing material property, collision. Newton is there to help you to describe that situation. Wave showing wave property, superposition, again that you know from classes like interference. The concept of superposition is going to be used, one wave mixed with another wave. Okay, you learn this is called also convolution. Later on you will be learning a bit of electromagnetic communication in your future courses, but that physics of how two waves superposes, that you know. You also know the particle nature of wave. There is a photonic nature that I have myself told you in your first year classes. Now I am actually concentrating, I am actually focusing on the issues like what do you mean by the 4th aspect, that is the wavy nature of a matter. And wavy nature of the matter was first dreamed by Louis de Broglie, and the idea was that The idea, whatever he has conceived, it was proved experimentally also by Davison and Jarmer. And in general, we may think the situation in this way, that this is the basic idea: the electron as a matter. It is, when you define electron with its mass, velocity, and momentum, you are thinking electron as a matter. So when this electron collides with another electron, you are thinking the electron as a matter. But in a quantum mechanics class, we do not focus on that, because how two matters collide, Newton has taught you that. Our interest, our area of choice is basically the idea of de Broglie, that is the wavy nature of the matter electron. It will no more be the matter, it will be the wavy nature of the matter electron. So basically, every day I have told you, I have promised you, I'll be reminding you this issue, that what do you mean by the wavy nature of the matter? It is basically the probability wave of electron, the chance of finding the electron. Okay, if you look at the picture, it is basically it is the chance of finding the electron. You see, if you look at a given point as shown by the arrowheads, at a given point, as the electron is moving, see the left hand side top picture, as the electron is changing the position. So if you try to take the snapshot, suppose you have taken 100 snapshots of whether you can see the electron or not, okay, you see the chance of the finding the electron at a given point is going to vary. Okay, because your problem is that electron is moving, electron you can't see, it is too small. So the probability or chance of finding the electron at a given point varies. The variation makes a wave, that is the wave, that is a wave of probabilities, wave of chances. So the wave nature that you talk about in a quantum mechanics class, you know, is a probability wave of the electron. So these are the probability waves of the electron, S wave, P wave, D wave, but they are not electrons, they are the chance of finding the electron. And this wavy nature of the electron is represented in general by a mathematical function psi, because psi can be both plus minus. So to get the probability, we take its mod psi square. So therefore, I told you in a problem, getting psi is most important. And by this time, you know, we can get psi because it's a mathematical function. Suppose I've got an electron moving around the nucleus of an atom. So it's a problem of a single particle motion. But to me, I cannot see the electron. I take chance to find out the electron. Chances are described by some probability of some functions psi, mod psi square. So basically, I have to calculate psi first. So he is going to give me psi. Psi is a function of mathematics. So I need a mathematical equation that is going to give me the functional formula. Now this equation was proposed long back in 1926 by Erwin Schrödinger. As you know, it is popularly known as the Schrödinger equation, popularly known as the equation of Schrödinger or Schrödinger equation. Now Schrödinger equation, this is the general form of the Schrödinger equation. As you can see, the equation is a second order first degree partial differential equation, where V stands for the potential energy, h cut means Planck constant by 2 pi, 2 is a number, m is the particle mass, I is root over -1, the imaginary, and h cut is Planck constant by 2 pi. Okay, so these are the various functional forms. So our job is, therefore you can realize that anything you do in quantum mechanics, you have to basically, your job is therefore to basically solve this equation of Schrödinger. Okay, just like in classical physics, to describe any problem of classical mechanics, we solve the equation of Newton, which is also a second order first degree differential equation. So I told you, by variety of this problem, I'm still presenting it in front of you, that if I'm living in classical physics, my equation, working equation is Newtonian equation, and if I'm living in quantum mechanics, my working equation is the Schrödinger equation. I have to solve the equation of Schrödinger. Now the problem is that this is not the equation of, and in this equation obviously potential energy term is V, and V will be 0 in a problem if no force is there, it will be non-zero in a problem if some force is there. Okay, so these things are known issues to you. So basically I told you, therefore if you have to stay in my class, you have to solve this equation. But solution of the equation is not the easiest job in the world. So what we tried to do, we tried to adapt some more techniques of mathematics. We tried to use a technique of mathematics called separation of variable, where psi was written as a function of a product of two functions. Okay, one is if you take a trial solution, it is like a to the power I kx minus omega t. I can write down this is like a1 e to the power I kx into at to the power minus I omega t, so that the first term becomes a function of x, second term becomes a function of t. So your job becomes to replace all those d to psi, del to psi, del x2, etc., all the psi's in terms of the right hand side parameter. Now if you do the replacement, your expression will become like this much. If you do the replacement, your expression will become like this much. You can see there, if I do the replacement as I told you earlier also, I'll get an equation whose one side purely depends on x and the other side purely depends on t. So this equation is very similar to the original equation as I told you initially also. This equation is very similar to the original equation. So final equation does not keep any time, called time independent Schrodinger equation, and the initial equation is called time dependent Schrodinger equation. Now after that I told you, suppose you solve Schrodinger equation, you get psi, what do you do with psi? That answer actually I tried to give you from the previous class, because I presented you in general the concept of variety of motions. These are all mechanics problem. I told you to describe any mechanics problem, the first thing you need to measure is position change, how position is changing with time. If position changes with time, then it's a problem of mechanics. It's a problem of dynamics, as a matter of fact. So knowing position of an object at various time is also the fundamental question of mechanics. So that question I try to answer in any arbitrary problem of quantum mechanics. Okay, and just like how the springs will move, that can only be answered if I have an idea how its x changes with time, how the displacement takes place with time. And so first thing you need to measure is position at a given time. But you see, apart from knowing position, there may be some other option also. Suppose the trains are moving. Where the train will reach after 1 hour, to answer this question I need more data, like its velocity, acceleration, force, etc. In general, if I suppose train may collide also, you need more data like kinetic energy, potential energy, etc. Now the answer is that if you know all of them, you can describe the motion of the object completely. Okay. So now, so therefore, all these variables that is needed, just like some more problem. You see, cars are colliding, bodies are sliding down. These are variety of problem of mechanics, and everywhere you use the Newtonian idea. That means you calculate force in classical physics, and if you know force and solve Newton's equation, you can get all those data. What is its position at a given time, velocity, momentum, kinetic energy, potential energy, sum of kinetic potential energy is total energy. All these things you can get. And all these variables, what they are doing, they together are describing dynamics of an object. Okay, you see, a car can move, a train can move. So if it moves, its variables are position at a given time. If you do a prediction how it will go after some time, more variables are like there, like momentum. If it collides, more variables are like there, energy, kinetic energy, potential energy. The idea is that if you know all of them, you can then and only then you can describe the motion of the object successfully. So all of them together are called dynamical variables. Now the point is that getting these variables are very easy for a big object. Suppose pendulum is oscillating, I can see the motion, I can measure its displacement directly because it's a big object. But in my class, the idea is that I do not talk about car, bus, tram, train, I talk about electron. Well, if electron moves also, it's a mechanics problem. If car moves also, it's a mechanics problem. If a train moves also, it's a mechanics problem. If a boy moves also, it's a mechanics problem. All these are mechanics problem. But when you talk about train, bus, etc., you talk about large object, classical physics. And when you talk about electron, you talk about quantum mechanics, quantum mechanics. Okay, that's my microscopic word. Okay, so if the matter moves also, it should have a variable position. If the matter moves, it should have a momentum, kinetic energy. So if the electron moves also, this variable should be there. So what I tried to intend last day, I wanted to tell you, how do you get this variable in a quantum mechanics problem? How do you generate those data of dynamical variable in a quantum mechanics problem? Just like electrons are moving, 3 electrons are moving in 3 different ways. How do you know they are moving differently? You cannot see the matter. You cannot see the matter. How do you know them? How do you extract those data? Okay, you need to know these variables to be measured. These dynamical variables need to be calculated to describe the mechanics of the problem of the system. Okay, you need to know all these variables to describe the mechanics of the problem. Okay, if you know all these data, then and only then you can successfully describe the problem. Okay. Now the question is that electron is too tiny to see. So what shall I do? In quantum mechanics, to me, I am representing the electron. I cannot see the electron. I represent the electron as a mathematical function psi. So my technique that I predicted last day is that as if psi knows everything. The wave function psi knows everything. It is like God, omnipotent. I'll talk with psi. Psi, give me momentum. Psi will respond me. Psi, give me kinetic energy. Psi will give me the data. Psi, give me potential energy. Psi will give me the data. So the answer is that this is called indirect method. I told you yesterday that I can make a direct measurement. So suppose I have car moving, I can directly measure its displacement. or I can ask somebody in the car where you are. That is called indirect measurement. So here also indirect measurement. I have to knock Shai for information. I'll be talking with Shai, but problem is that Shai is a mathematical function. So if you have to talk with Shai, you have to talk with Shai in the language of mathematics. Okay, mathematics language means language of operators. So what we did last day, we defined for every variable I wish to measure, there exists a mathematical operator. Okay, I told you. Okay, for position, these are classical ideas are written there. You understand it, and quantum mechanically, all of them are called operators. Now x becomes x cap, t becomes t cap, p becomes p cap, and these are their operator form. Okay, x is x, t is t, p is minus h del x. So when you measure momentum, you have to do a first derivative of psi. When you measure kinetic energy, you have to do a second derivative of psi. When you measure total energy, you have to do both of them. Potential energy is a function of x, because x does not change, so it remains unchanged. Okay, if you have to measure total energy, then Hamiltonian operator will act. Okay, all these things are there. So basically, as if all ideas are known to psi, so each operator, suppose if you know momentum, operator of momentum should talk with psi. So that means it will do a first derivative of psi. Now I'll tell you what is the answer of psi to the question raised. Okay, so how these operators are going to respond, that is something I'll be talking about now. Okay, so let me present you through some calculation directly, so that it becomes easier for you. Just give me 2 seconds to do those calculation. Okay. Let me stop the video. No more needed. So this is the solution of the Schrodinger equation. So from this, so to me the electron is, this is the electron. This is the wave function of the electron. So from the wave function, electron is moving, suppose along this arrowhead. Suppose I wish to know what is the electron momentum and electron kinetic energy. Question is that who knows this data? Psi knows it. So attack Psi. So how do you attack Psi? Ask question to Psi. Okay, we'll be asking question to Psi. Who will ask? How do you ask question to Psi? In the language of operator. So to get momentum operator will act on psi. Okay, I call it psi 1 here, minus h cross del x. It is a sine kx. This is the functional form. And to get kinetic energy operator will act on psi 1. That is minus h cut square by 2m d2 dx2. Psi 1 means a sine kx. You know enough mathematics that I can write down this equation in this form. The first term would be like p psi 1 minus h cut k, the derivative gives you, and this will become a cos kx. Now here if you do double derivative, it will be like t psi 1 minus h cut square by 2m, that derivative of sine will become cos, and cos to sine is minus k will be there. So it is minus k square by 2m, it will be sine function again. So basically the first term will become p psi 1 is equal to minus h cut k. You started with sine, you end up with cos, mind it. And here if you look at the kinetic energy expression, t psi 1 minus plus h cut square k square by 2m. Okay, and you started with sine, you end up with sine, so I call it psi 1. So if you write down this equation, you see here an operator t, just like you may write down in general any operator O, acting on a function psi 1, producing back the function psi 1 multiplied with a constant. This is a constant. If that happens, then this type of equation is called an eigenvalue equation. So you see you are satisfying an eigenvalue equation, okay, of that particular equation, okay, of that operator, in this case in general O cap. So this is the eigenvalue equation of the kinetic energy operator. Okay, this is the eigenvalue equation of the operator of kinetic energy, and this function is called eigenfunction of that operator, and this constant is called measured value or eigenvalue of that particular operator. So idea is that you can measure any dynamical variable if the corresponding operator, in this case t cap, acting on the function psi 1, gives you back the function multiplied with a constant. In this case this is the constant h cut square k square by 2m. Then and only then measurement is possible. Otherwise you cannot measure. That means you satisfy an eigenvalue equation. Then this function, sine function, is an eigenfunction of that operator. okay, the value, this constant, this h cut square k square by 2m is a measured value of kinetic energy. This is a measured kinetic energy of the electron. Mind it, this is not like 20 kg meter, 40 meter per meter per second. It's a structure. Okay, this is basically a structure. Okay, I'm getting a structure here, just like half mv square. Okay, I'm getting a structure. In a problem, you have to put the correct value of h cut. H cut means Planck constant by 2 pi. Okay, k means 2 pi by lambda, 2 pi by wavelength, 2 pi by a type quantity, 2 pi by lattice constant, and mass of the electron you have to put. If you, instead of electron, a proton is moving, you have to put protonic mass. So if you put the correct value of k and m, you will get the value of the kinetic energy of the electron. So it's a structure. Now come to the other side of the story. If you look at the equation, in this equation, you see an operator P acting on a function psi 1. Okay, do not produce the same function back. You are not getting the sine function back. So this is not an eigenvalue equation. So because this is not an eigenvalue equation, so the prescription is that you cannot measure momentum. So with sine function, what you notice, you can measure kinetic energy, but you cannot measure momentum. So the idea is that any dynamical variable will be measured if the operator, if the corresponding operator satisfy eigenvalue equation, otherwise you cannot measure. So in this case, this sine function, you see, this is an eigenfunction of the kinetic energy operator, but not the eigenfunction of the operator of momentum. So the operator has to satisfy the eigenvalue equation. If you satisfy the eigenvalue equation like this, then you can measure, otherwise you cannot measure. And the function or the given function has to be eigenfunction of that operator. And the constant is the measured value. I show you another example for you to realize. Okay, so if I look at another example, you see I've got another electron moving here. Suppose I have solved its Schrodinger equation. And wave function is psi 2 is equal to this much. So again, I wish to know electron is moving. So it should have some momentum, some kinetic energy. Who knows this data? Psi knows this. Okay, again, to get this question, to get this data, ask question to psi. Okay, in this case psi 2. So operator of momentum will act on psi 2. That is minus h curl del Lx. Psi 2 means a to the power ikx. And to get the kinetic energy, minus h cut square by 2m, the del 2 del x2 of a to the power ikx. Okay, so if you do so, in this case what would happen? P will act on psi 2, and you can realize if you take derivative of e to the power function, suppose I have got a to the power ax, if you differentiate, it becomes a to the power ax again. Okay, if you take a double differentiation, it will become s square a to the power ax. If you do n time differentiation, it a to the power n e to the power and this function remains unchanged. So if you take a derivative of this, so minus this ik will come up, and e to the power function will remain unchanged. Here also, if you take a derivative of this, minus h cut square by 2m remain unchanged, and this ik will come twice. It is equivalent to this much. This is like a. So it will be like ik square, and double differentiation will remain e to the power unchanged as unchanged. So this is p psi 2 is equal to ii minus 1 minus minus plus h cut k, and you started with a to the power ikx, you end up with a to the power ikx, so you are getting psi 2 back. In this case, you are acting t on psi 2. You see minus minus, it will be minus minus I square minus 1. So basically minus minus plus h cut square k square by 2m. You started with this, okay, you end up with this. So this is also a satisfying an equation like this. So you see, if you look at the equation in kinetic energy, operator O acting on psi 2 gives you back the function multiplied with the constant. You satisfy again an eigenvalue equation. Here also You see, if you here also operator O acting on the function psi 2 gives you back the function multiplied with a constant. So here also to the left hand side also with momentum also you are satisfying an eigenvalue equation. So this is an eigenvalue equation of the operator of kinetic energy, and this psi 2 is the eigenfunction of the operator of kinetic energy, and this is the measured kinetic energy value. And I told you it's a structure. Now this is obviously, this is also the eigenfunction of the operator of momentum, and this is h cut k is a eigenvalue of the momentum operator, eigenvalue or measured momentum. And obviously this equation is an eigenvalue equation of that operator of momentum. This is an eigenvalue equation of the operator of momentum. Okay, it is an eigenvalue equation of the operator of momentum. So you see I have shown you 4 cases of measurement. These are the case 2 with the e to the power function. With e to the power function you can measure both momentum, okay, and kinetic energy. So this is eigenfunction of both the operator. Okay, and lastly I shown you with sine function. If you have a look at that, sine function is an eigenfunction of t cap. Sine function is an eigenfunction of t cap. If you look at the last layer that I have shown you, sine function is an eigenfunction of t cap, but not the eigenfunction of p cap. So I have shown you 4 cases. You can see in the first case you can measure kinetic energy, and if you look at the second case you can measure both kinetic energy and momentum. Now you see when you measure, the measured value is a constant and positive quantity. H cat square k square by 2m is a positive quantity. Here also it's a positive quantity and constant quantity and real quantity. So mind it, if I keep all these things together, this is going to give you a new lesson. So get that lesson. So I have shown you 4 cases. So case 1 was that I have got an electron moving with its wave function described by a function psi 1 is equal to a sine function. I wish to know what is its momentum and what is its kinetic energy. I know these information are stored inside psi, so I interacted with psi. So in this case I could not satisfy eigenvalue equation, but with kinetic energy operator I satisfied, and the eigenvalue was like h cat square k square by 2m and sine function back. And in this case when you could not satisfy, it was like minus h cat k, you get a cos function. This was the result. Now in the second case, when you have been looking at the e to the power function, what you have been doing, again also the psi 2 was taken as psi 2 is equal to a to the power I kx. So your value if you have to know momentum and kinetic energy, what you have to do, operator of momentum was acting on psi 2. So after operation you get h cut k and psi 2 back, and in this case you get t psi 2 is equal to h cat square k square by 2m and psi 2 back. So you see I have shown you 4 cases of measurement. In 3 cases you measure, you satisfy eigenvalue equation. In 1 case you cannot satisfy, and you see when you measure, these quantities are real quantities. These are real because h cut is Planck constant by 2 pi, which is a real quantity. K is wave number, 2 pi by length, real quantity. Mass cannot be imaginary, real quantity. 2 is a real constant. So these things are real, but so this is also real. So when you measure, these eigenvalues are real. All these eigenvalues are real. Eigenvalues are all real. These eigenvalues are all real. And when you can't measure it, there may be imaginary term. So an operator with real eigenvalue is called an Hermitian operator. So in quantum mechanics, the operator has to be Hermitian. Okay, this is called an Hermitian operator. So all these operators in quantum mechanics are Hermitian operator. Okay, so Hermitian operator means operator with real value, eigenvalue, operator with real eigenvalue. Operator with real eigenvalue is called Hermitian operator. Now quantum mechanical operator has to be Hermitian, because this is giving me kinetic energy of an object, momentum of an object, potential velocity position of an object. They cannot be momentum of an object, potential energy of an object, that cannot be imaginary. But operator concept is a general mathematics idea that So that's why if you have to use in quantum mechanics code, that has to be real. Okay. Another very important idea is that if you look at the last case, the value of the momentum is h cut k, and value of the kinetic energy is h cut square k square by 2m. So this is your quantum mechanical momentum and this is your quantum mechanical kinetic energy. If I show it now again, you see you get another beautiful relationship. Momentum is h cut k. This is your quantum mechanical momentum. This is not mass into velocity like quantity. Quantum mechanical formula of momentum, and I told you it's a structure. In a problem, you have to put the correct value of h cut and k and solve it. And this is your quantum mechanical formula of kinetic energy, h cut square k square by 2m. So this is the quantum mechanical formula. Okay. And I also told you it's a structure. In a problem, you have to put the right value of h cut. H cut is a constant, k, which is 2 pi by length, mass. Then you will get the actual numeric value. Now, if I now have a look, combine these two, you will see. If you look at kinetic energy, I can write down this in this way: h cut k whole square by 2m. This is nothing but h cut k is nothing but this is nothing but you compare with this equation momentum. So this is p square by 2m. You see, this is the quantum mechanical for measured momentum formula. This is the kinetic energy formula in quantum mechanics. But you see, the relationship between kinetic energy and momentum is a classical relationship. This is actually one of the theorem. The relationship is a classical relationship. Classical relation. This is one of the theorem of quantum mechanics. This is called Ehrenfest theorem. Ehrenfest. Ehrenfest theorem. Okay, Ehrenfest theorem states all classical mechanical relationship has got their quantum analog. Ehrenfest. Ehrenfest theorem. It tells us all quantum mechanical relationship, all quantum mechanical relation, or vice versa, have their quite classical analog. Okay, this is just for your information. Okay, so the idea is that when you can measure or can't measure, that I have shared with you. Now for you to do at home, I am giving a job. You practice it. I suppose I have got another electron moving, third case. Okay, the electron wave function, suppose I have solved Schrodinger equation. The electron wave function is psi 3 is equal to a to the power minus ikx. You tell me whether you can measure kinetic energy and momentum or not. Okay, I am giving you this home assignment. Okay, if you could do, okay, you have to only judge, you have to operate T on psi 3, you will tell me the result, and you have to operate P on psi 3, you will tell me the result. Okay, understand? So you'll tell me whether this is an eigenfunction of T cap or not. My question is that whether with this you can measure kinetic energy or momentum or not, so that you should respond. Okay, so job is simple. Here in this case you have to operate minus h cut square by 2m d to dx2 will act on psi 3. If you satisfy an eigenvalue equation like this, some constant into psi 3, then it is measurable. And in this case also, if you have to operate minus h cut del x on the function psi 3, and if you satisfy an eigenvalue equation like this, O psi 3 is equal to constant into psi 3, then it is measurable, otherwise not. So please do it at your home and tell me how it goes on. Okay, because this idea will be used in the next class. So here I conclude this lecture, but our discussion, our journey with operator is continued because it's a new world. So the takeaway from today's class is this, that you can measure any dynamical variable if you satisfy the eigenvalue equation. Okay, now if you can only satisfy an eigenvalue equation, and that is in general, if an operator O acting on a function psi gives you back the function multiplied with a constant, then and only then you can measure. This is called the eigenvalue equation of that particular operator. And one example I am giving you in the case 1 is, that is, if I have got an electron moving, wave function is psi 1 is equal to a sine function. With this I can calculate kinetic energy. So T psi 1 is equal to h cut square k square by 2m. So this becomes the eigenvalue equation of that particular operator. This is the eigenvalue equation of that particular operator. This is the eigenfunction of that particular operator. And this is the eigenvalue of that particular operator, or measured value or measured value of that particular operator. Okay, and you know, eigenvalue, eigenfunction is a term that you have heard in mathematics courses. So actually T can be written as a matrix, matrices you have heard it, psi can be written as a matrix. So this can be written as a matrix. So getting eigenvalue is basically a process of matrix diagonalization in actual quantum mechanics problem. So if you diagonalize a matrix, diagonalization, that will give you the corresponding eigenvalue. But you don't have to tell that is how it is connected with the term eigenvalue, because later on actually O is any operator can be written as a matrix, any function can be written as a matrix, T is a matrix, psi is a matrix. So your job is to solve a matrix equation. You diagonalize the matrix of the operator T, you will get the eigenvalue. But you don't have to take the trouble in your course. That type of job will not be asked. You'll be only given a function. You'll be asked whether with that function, just like say with sine function is an eigenfunction of t cap, not the eigenfunction of p cap. E to the power ikx is an eigenfunction of t cap and p cap both. So you'll be given and I ask you a question, e to the power minus ikx is an eigenfunction of t cap, but whether it is an eigenfunction of p cap or not, you check it. So basically, just like this, any function will be given. You'll be asked whether you can measure a particular variable or not. If you satisfy this equation, this particular equation, this eigenvalue equation, then you can measure, and otherwise you can't measure. That is the moral of the story. So today we stop, but our discussion with eigenvalue, eigenfunction, and the operator will continue, because some more interesting things are pending for you. Okay, thank you.